Hello and welcome. Today I have for you all a pure CSS masonry layout with Flexbox clusters. Now, the finished product is ready for production level websites, and since there are no additional moving parts, it's just a basic layout, very in your face, just ready to go. There's no performance hindering whatsoever. There's no lack of performance. It shouldn't suffer at all. Just to show you guys, these are the Flexbox clusters right here. This is the column setup for Flexbox, and this is the row setup for Flexbox. As you can see, the columns are exactly the same size. Since one is larger, the rest of them will conform to the size and equal out the height variance. Now, when it comes to rows, the width will also be equal all the way throughout. The rest of it, these are just basic masonry containers that I have here. I don't know if you can see the color difference; it's very light. But in between it, there's a gap, a white gap. And it's about 1 root EM, which is about anywhere between 16 and 18 pixels. Now, getting in depth with this, I'm utilizing normalize as a jumping point, and then afterwards I am implementing some basic styles. The first basic style is setting everything and its before and after to a box sizing of border box. Allows for a better platform of design. I'm setting the HTML body's height to 100% of the viewport and giving it a relative position. The reason why I give it a height of 100% of the viewport is because I want to cancel the overflow of the HTML, and I want to cancel the overflow X, or the X overflow, of the body and leave the Y overflow as normal. Why I do this is because I don't want HTML to overflow while the body is not. There are some rare occasions when it occurs, and when it does, it hinders performance greatly and sometimes crashes the browser. I don't want that happening. This is the best workaround for it. In fact, I like utilizing this because then I have more design capability in my applications than I did before. And I am also getting rid of the margin padding on everything, and I will assign a margin padding to what I need. Alright, so from here down is the masonry. As it says, the following is just the basic setup. Everything within the basic setup that is cosmetic will be marked as such, which is very true. Everything afterwards is purely cosmetic and optional. Alright, so the first thing I have here is enclosed in a support statement. Basically just seeing if the column width and column gap are supported in the browser you are using. Setting this up, it's very simple. We're just giving the width of the column, which is just this width right here from this box to this box, and giving it a small gap on either side. Well, on one side, just to make sure that there is a space between columns. Next, I have the containing element here, just called masonry. As you guys can see, masonry. I'm just giving it a cosmetic padding of 1. The width is definitely needed to be 100%. Sometimes on certain browsers, it won't be 100%, and then your masonry setup looks really weird. It happens. Next, we have the masonry articles. That's what I'm utilizing as my elements in the masonry element itself to separate everything. Make sure you set the width of them to 100%. And this is definitely needed for masonry to work. The display of inline box. If you do not have inline blocks. If you do not have this set, the previous columns will condense themselves, and it will start to run off on into the next column, which gives the styling a bit of a weird look, and you can see it's uneven completely. It just wants to complete it so that the columns are generally the same size. We don't want that. We want them to be full and all in one place. We're not trying to make this look like a news article here. We're trying to make it look like a professional application. The paragraph margin I give here is cosmetic, but recommended. Next, we get into the Flexbox clusters. Now, this is just a bonus section, so if you only wanted to learn the masonry part of this, then here it is. This is it. It's really all I need to know. That's the basic masonry setup. There's definitely more advanced options, and the Flexbox clusters is one of those, so I would recommend watching the rest of this just to get an idea of what I'm doing here. Alright, so what I do here is I'm adding these clusters in because almost every Flexbox layout that I have seen, not Flexbox layout, any masonry layout that I've seen includes this feature, the Flexbox clusters, to some degree. And why do they do that? Like it says here, to break the flow and have content stand out. Right here, this statement means a lot. You can have featured posts, you can have featured products, you can have a lot of interesting things inside of your Masonry layout, but you want them to stand out more so than everything else. This allows you to do that. This is purely cosmetic, it's purely optional, and everything in here is also optional to the Flexbox clusters itself. This entire block right here, the Flex cluster, is optional, but margin and padding, highly recommended. The background color is just to let it stand out from the white. Now, the Flex cluster and the Flex content, I give the display of Flex, because these are the two these are the two containers that will be holding our Flex elements. Of course, the column will have a Flex direction of column, and the row will have a Flex direction of row. As you guys can see, both of them right there. Inside of here, I'm just setting the margin tops for the paragraphs and giving the first child a margin top of 0.25 rem. Purely cosmetic, but highly recommended so that you have even containers. Now, the next important thing in these clusters are these right here. The Flex content, which we're giving a flex of 1, 1 auto. Okay, so the flex of 1, 1 auto is as this. The first one is for shrink, Flex shrink. Now, if you have this 0, that means it'll have no priority whatsoever, and therefore it will not shrink at all. It'll stay the same size or grow. It will not shrink. The second one is for grow. Again, if it is 0, it will just shrink or stay the same size. It will not grow. The higher up the number is, the higher the priority of this Flex element is. Therefore, it will basically grow before anything else or shrink before anything else, as long as one of these priorities is higher than everything else. The auto in the statement is the Flex basis, meaning the dimensions, in this case the width, will be automatically assigned based upon what elements are inside of our Flex containers. The half column, which is the one I'm utilizing for the Flex columns in our example, is giving a Flex shrink of 1, Flex grow of 1, and a basis of 50%. So the columns are 50% of the space that we have. And the following is cosmetic, again recommended though for spacing it out just to make it look uniform. Same thing here with the quarter column. And we're giving the quarter column, of course, a Flex shrink of 1, a Flex grow of 1, and a basis of 25%, so with this 25% of the space we have. And we're just getting rid of the margin right on the last child, which means it makes sense. Now, this right here is purely cosmetic. I recommend utilizing the padding at the very least if you're going to keep the exact same measurements that I have here. Change the background color, whatever you want to do. You can really play around with these settings just to see what different styles would look like, different arrangements of these styles would look like. Entirely up to you. And this is the basic HTML setup. It's just a Masonry element and articles. And this is a basic column setup right here for the Flexbox clusters, which is just Flex cluster, Flex content, half column, Flex content, and then you can just basically give it a hierarchy from there. And then we have the row, which this is just extremely simple, just add paragraphs in instead of having to give them new Flex content rows, etc., etc. But if you wanted to add more in, you could just do this, which is just Flex content. It doesn't really change the settings at all, but you can now add more in here so that it further aligns it. It just creates a basic hierarchy. And the rest of it is just example code. It's just articles with inners and paragraphs. That's really it for today. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks for watching.